Hi, I'm Miles from CarpSchool, and I'm going to show you how to tie a chod rig. An incredibly effective rig, brilliant at presenting baits over weed and other bottom debris. So to start off the chod rig, we're going to tie the stiff bristle filament onto a swivel. We're going to do that with a 3-turn blood knot. Now the swivel I'm using there is a ball bearing swivel. They are the most free running swivels, and that is super important for the mechanics of this rig. 1, 2, 3 turns and poke that back through the first loop that was tied. So you can see the knot. Make sure you wet it and pull it down nice and smoothly. Now, because it is so stiff, this material, you need to help those little turns come down, but make sure they all sit nice and neatly next to each other like so, and you've got a really good strong connection. Snip that tag end off, and there you go. All right, we're now got to the stage where we're tying on the hook. Pass the hook link up through the eye, okay? So coming from the side that the point is on, coming up through, and slide that hook all the way down towards the swivel. Now some guys like to fish their chod rigs up pretty high up off the bottom. You can do that, or you can fish them really low down. Tying the chod rig in this way allows you to adjust that quite nicely. I'm going to tie a fairly short one here, so I'm going to leave a small gap between the eye of the hook and the swivel to start off with. The line's going to run along the shank of the hook, and then we just turn it around 180 degrees, like so. Okay, so we now have a loop here that's running along the shank of the hook and not really extending past the bend of the hook at all. Hold it nice and tight there. Now this is probably the trickiest bit of tying it. What we're going to do is take our tag end here and we're going to pass it around the shank of the hook and then head up that way towards the bend of the hook, away from the eye, wrapping as we go. All right, so we're going to hold, pinching it really tight with my thumb and forefinger. We're going to come around once and then fold it round, and then twice, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 turns. Okay, take the right hand, thumb and forefinger, and pinch that to make sure those rolls don't unravel. Remember, this is really springy material, and give it 1/4 of an inch and it'll all just come flying undone. We're then going to take the tag end and pass it through the loop and pull it on up. Okay, at this stage you can let go. Remember to wet it, like so. I'm going to pass a little tool in there and I'm going to pull on the swivel. And pull the knot down tight. Now applying some pressure to the tag end and to the little the material that we're creating the chod out of, we end up with the tag end leaving the knot right on the back of the shank there. That's really, really important. But you don't want it coming off at any kind of angle. So we're going to pull that down nice and tight. And pull that round, like so. So you can see there that that's sitting right on the back of the shank of the hook, dead in line. Cut off, leaving yourself 3 or 4 inches to play with, a little bit of an angle. And at this stage, we're just going to put a little metal ring on. I like these round rings here. I'm just going to pop that and slide that down. Okay. Now we're going to pull the hook link out of the way, like so. Just pull it off to an angle, and then using this tag end, create a nice small loop passing back through. Try not to kink that over and keep it in a nice round shape like so, and pull it on down nice and small. Okay, snip that off. I tend to snip it off pretty much in line with the eye, with the point of the hook rather, leaving a bit of a tag end there. Now it's important that you pull this out of the way because we're going to take a lighter and burn the end here. Remembering not to get any flames anywhere near the rest of the tag end or the knot that you've created. Now you can push the loop out so that the tag end sticks out just a little further than required. A little more. And that's created a nice blob there. You can use the side of the lighter just to squish it off. And then what I like to do is just using this little round tool, make sure that this ring is sitting nice and round. Remember, it needs to be a nice small ring as well. At this point, you need to pull the choddy nice and straight. Make sure there's no kinks in the material. And then using your thumb and forefinger, create a nice curve to create your chod rig. It's really important that it sits nice and straight that way. You can't have things going off at an angle or bending or anything. That's why it's really important to make sure it's dead straight. And before casting out, every time make sure that everything's nicely in line with the shank of the hook and that you've got a nice curve in there. Now, it's become fashionable of late to put a really big curve in there so that it's almost sitting round, almost like a withy pool rig perhaps. Traditionally, a chod rig has a bend somewhere like that. The best way to make sure you've got it right, I feel, is to actually tie your bait on. Now, it's important that you floss around the outside of the bait and you don't pierce the hook bait in any way. These have got a cork ball inside. They're super buoyant, which is required for a chod rig to hold up this big hook and the swivel. And so if you pierce it, then that can alter the buoyancy. So remember, floss around the outside. And then we're just going to tie it on to the small ring on the D-rig using a few granny knots. So pass it through. Make sure it doesn't go through the loop created in the stiff material. It really is just going through the little metal ring that's sliding on it. There's one granny knot. I'll just lock that off with another. Snip that off, nice and tight. If you like, you can blob those ends. But ideally what you're looking for is when that's hanging like so, you can see that the bait is just about touching the bend of the hook there. There's a nice curve in the stiff bristle filament. It's dead in line with the shank of the hook. The bend's just about touching the pop up there, and that is how to tie a chod rig.